always takes me back. If you've got an imagination, you think what it was like here 80 years ago. There would have been noisy. There'd have been those Bakelite phones ringing away and messages coming in, raised voices and tension, I suppose. I think Eisenhower said we're putting everything on one number. You know, the stakes are higher than they've ever been, with the implication that if this failed, the war would go on for even longer. It certainly makes me humble to think what happened here. So welcome to the D-Day map room, as it's known, the Operation Neptune, which was the naval operation for Overlord, the landings in Normandy. This is where Admiral Sir Bertram Ramsay, who was the Allied Forces Naval Commander-in-Chief for Overlord, planned and executed the naval phase to get all the troops from the UK onto the beaches of Normandy. D-Day, you know, Normandy, it beggars belief. Its scale and complexity, it really does. Don't think we could do it again. The initial invasion was about 155,000 troops. There were, we know, over 4,000 landing craft of about 14 different variants, 1,200 warships, a massive merchant marine as well, bringing all the supplies across. And then you've of course got the technology of pipeline under the ocean, these massive oil cables that would be laid under the sea to bring oil and lubricants to the beaches to refuel the tanks and everything. Tens of thousands of aircraft. The Royal Air Force and the United States Air Force preparing the battlefield with bombs, and for every bomb they dropped on Normandy, they had to drop 2 somewhere else, so the Germans didn't realise that we were paying attention particularly to Normandy, but bombing the bridges and the railway lines and things like that, so the Germans couldn't reinforce. So the scale is immense. The operation was commanded from an underground command headquarters overlooking Portsmouth. But here was where the senior officers met to A, make any plans and also to make any key decisions away from the sort of hub of noise and what is going down in Portsmouth where the fleet is about to set forth. So you're looking at a map. If you're a Royal Naval officer, you'd say it was a chart. And if you look at the map, the first thing I draw your attention to is this grey hatched line that extends all the way up the map there beyond Calais. And that is a German minefield, non-magnetic mines, so it's contact mines only. And the Allies had to clear these minefield lanes through here so that the fleet and the invasion forces could penetrate without the loss of any vessels. The grey ones that are just grey, and there's another big one up if you pan up towards the Bristol Channel and the Irish Sea, those are British minefields, and they were put in on the orders of Admiral Ramsay to try and bottle in German surface vessels in the ports of Cherbourg in particular and Le Havre, to stop them getting out and seeing this massive build-up of maritime assets in the Channel. The other significant point I'd like to show you is the circle there with the letter Z, or Zulu as we say in the military, and that's the assembly point to which all invasion forces on D-Day came into. They would go into that bit. It was renamed Piccadilly Circus because it became so busy. You've got the beaches, Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, Sword, and Band. There was another beach which was to be used for an ancillary operation on D+1, which would have been the 7th of June, to go in on there, but that wasn't used. And there is a story that Juno was originally named after a fish, so it was goldfish, jellyfish, swordfish, but Churchill, who took a close personal interest in such matters, said you couldn't tell a widow that her husband or a mother that her son had died on a beach called Jelly, so it was renamed to Juno. The other fascinating thing about this is you'll see also on the map, there's a thing there that says Big Drum, another one here off Feckham, which is taxable, and then another one off Boulogne, which is Glimmer. And these were actually deception operations by naval and air forces to lead the Germans to believe that we were concentrating elsewhere. So what happens was that there's a navigable canal from Oostrum, where the port is, to Caen, which is the regional capital. There's a bridge over that canal, which was key, known now as Pegasus Bridge. There were 2 bridges there. It was a coup de main operation where the glider forces actually landed on the target and then took the bridge to prevent the Germans from blowing it up. And Arlette's cafe, which her father Georges ran, is literally the other side of the bridge. So she, as a 5-year-old girl, was absolutely in the epicenter of the D-Day operation, and possibly the most important phase of that operation. And without a doubt, her home was the first home to be liberated in Normandy by the Allies.
Well, my father was called George, and Daddy, when they married in 1932, they bought the little cafe in 1934 because my grandparents were hotel and restaurant owners in Trouville and Deauville. Mummy was a trained nurse, so they wanted to work together, bring up a family, and so they bought the little Café Gondree where Daddy put his name on it. And then my sister, Georgette, and I was born. So they were very modest people in the village, and the village in those days was just about 100 inhabitants, where they would come and talk and exchange views. It was mostly a farming community, but the fact that Daddy spoke English was a great help. The village was vital. It was a crossroad where they had to come through and get the Germans out of the village. There were about 54 Germans in the village, to allow the troops coming off the beaches to get through the village, to get over the two bridges, and then onto the high grounds and the back of the coastline toward Merville. Daddy was warned very shortly before it was due to happen not to move out of the house with the family. And so my parents prepared in the cellar, which is the whole length of the house, 2 meters high, a mattress on some straw between the two large cider barrels. And that is where we were to go. So it was 10:30, or probably more, when we went down to settle. And then it wasn't long after that where we were shaken by a tremendous crashing noise, which was horrific. And then we heard different noise around the cafe. So Daddy left us for a short time and went upstairs to see what he could see. And then the shutters of our dining room were being forced open and the window panes were being broken. Above our heads, we thought the Germans were coming in to get us. So Daddy left us again for the second time and brought down 2 figures we had not seen before, covered in black with nets. One of them grabbed me, took me in his arm. I was very frightened because we hadn't seen such figures before. Mummy started kissing them, but they gave me something I had not had for a long time with Georgia, and it was chocolate and biscuits. And from that moment on, we were with them. So that was in the last hour of the 5th of June. Because we were under German timing, we were not 016, we were 2316. So that is why we celebrate all together with my beloved veterans, whether they are the old or the youngs of today, that very special timing of 2316 with some champagne, which at the time my father unearthed from the garden within the hour of that with the British soldiers who were digging their trenches, and it was brought out to say thank you to them. They're part of my family. You know, we have grown together, we have shared memories together, we have aged together. Some of them will call me Little Arlette, some of them will just call me Arlette. They call me the way they wish to call me. But sadly, over the years, the family is shrinking. But we must keep the memories alive, and that's very important.